David, thank you so much. Thanks for putting up with my smart aleckness. Okay, I'd like to call the work session on September 25th to order. We'll do a roll call of board members present. Valerie Ingram is here. Christy? Here. Mark?
Here.
Kate? Here. Brad will not be joining us this evening.
And then we also have our student rep.
Yes.
Cannot forget Nate. How are you, Nate?
Very good.
Awesome. Okay, for this work session meeting, we are going to talk about school board goals. It's a future action item that we're going to be voting on soon. And we kind of just wanted a chance to go through and look at some of the goals that we had and see if we wanted to adjust those or leave those as they were, and then maybe add a specific goal to our thing. One of the ideas was Christy had an idea to do a goal based on kind of how we've implemented the literacy curriculum and just kind of, I don't know how we can quantify how the reading is going overall in the district. Is that how you would summarize that pretty much? Okay. And then the other one was develop a shared accountability and reflective evaluation system. I think you guys have a copy of this. This was some of Christy's ideas that she sent out. I asked Kathy to print them up so we would have them. Christy, do you want to share some thoughts on it, or?
Sure. Well, I just, we had looked in leadership team meeting at examples of goals from neighboring districts, and they're very similar in that we all have goals around increased engagement, increased performance, but really trying to drill, this is a little weird being in this, I'm used to.
Okay, they're usually staying at the table too, but since they weren't like gonna be talking as much, some of the cabinet members, I said that they didn't have to sit up here with us.
That's fine.
Sorry.
I'm used to, I'm just not sure who I'm talking to. I'm talking to everybody.
We're talking to us.
Okay, all right, I know, but you know, we are the world. All right. So when I look at the draft of our goals that we talked about at retreat, I think to me, like, this is something that all boards are doing everywhere. What we are going to attending activities, encouraging partnerships, advocating with our legislators. And so my question initially around this was like, within these 5 broad goals, what are a couple things that maybe this board wants to operationalize? For instance, if we did something around advocating for funding, well, what does a goal around that look like for us? Does it look like we're attending all the local town halls that Janine Solman and Susan McLean are having? And then when we do that, what is our, what is like an action plan for us as a board as far as a specific goal? But then I really looked at, and I know we're going to talk about Dave's goals later in the meeting, but then as I looked at Dave's framework for the strategic plan, the 2 that stuck out to me were the ones really were around reading. And I think when we heard in a couple of meetings ago from our literacy teachers that were implementing the Amplify, and they were very passionate about how it's been rolling out, how it's been going, and just wanting to kind of continue that, they all seem to sort of come together. So the question I ended up just asking and putting out to the board was, maybe instead of all of this sheet, which are things that we're going to be doing, that we really just focus on a couple specific things. And it doesn't have to be these things, but the 2 ones around literacy to me seem like that's a way that the board could really support what we heard from those teachers in that first meeting. But the key piece about this is, again, otherwise, what I have, implement the literacy core curriculum, increase in-home supports for lowest performing readers as ideas of to-do things. But really, it's more about the measurables. Because when you look at the board goals from the other cities around us, there's plenty of goals there, but there's no measurables defined for boards to be able to say, are we actually doing this? So how do we as a board monitor? And the one piece I think that I would like to see, this is just me personally, is I would like some sort of a consistent feedback directly from teachers who are working in those areas, maybe even on a monthly basis, to answer a couple basic questions. Do they have confidence that they can implement the curriculum on 1 to 10? Do they have the supports they need? Yes, no, not yet. And space where they could identify what they still need. And do they have the time they need to implement curriculum? If we were asking teachers that as a board, that's the data as a board that I would like to see back as a board member. And then that last piece of measurable accountability, which again, I think many districts aren't quite sure how to do yet publicly, but would be getting data from those K-3 kids. Do I feel like I can read? Do I feel good at reading? Do I like reading? And kids, kinders, first, second, are able to, on a smiley face scale, indicate where they feel they are in that progress. So as we get that data from teachers and kids, and we're looking at the data that the district's already collecting at what we're implementing and making sure that there's not discrepancies. And one of the really good pieces that Dave brought to us at the leadership meeting was the role of a board. And the role of the board is really one of the pieces in there was monitoring and assessing progress. And so as a board, is that a piece that we could have in place where we could help with that accountability piece? So that was all of my thinking wrapped into one document. But to me, without those measurables from the teachers and the kids, then I wouldn't be committed to these goals as a focus yet as a board. I mean, I'm open to, if the board said, no, we'd rather advocate, we'd really go all in on advocating with our legislators to make sure the funding continues. Okay, what's it look like as an action plan for the board?
Yeah, I really like, how you included the measurable outcomes, because that's what I was kind of wondering after that last meeting was like, well, how are we gonna quantify this and how are we gonna hold it accountable and see what's really happening? And I like the idea of seeing the number of teachers trained every so often. I don't know if we can do like a question every month, or if we should do like 6 weeks, or like the grading things, or how we should do that. But do you think that's something we could do these?
So I have just a couple of thoughts. One is that I don't think this is, I think the data is good. But I think, again, implementing the adopted literacy core curriculum, that's a strategic plan. That's actually our work. Now, reporting it back to you, that I don't mind that part of it. But again, I don't think the number of teachers trained should be necessarily your measurable outcome. That's Arturo's measurable outcome. And how we report it to you so that you get the information that you need, be able to make the determination about whether or not we're making progress, or the part of this decision is, does this need more money? That's a board, like, we need to put more resource behind this. I'm not really struggling with the measurable outcomes. These are all, I talked to Arturo before the meeting, and these are all things that I kind of like the 3-question to the teachers as a way for us to get feedback. The timing of it, I'd want to talk about a little bit, just making sure that we're not overwhelming folks. But this is all, but again, I think that's our work. I don't think that's necessarily the board work. And I think the monitoring, which is somehow you get the report of this, you get the information, and then you get to make determinations about, do we have enough resource? Do we want to direct Dave to move more aggressively in X? That's my only thing I'm trying to winnow down here is, what's the board goal? Because I don't think the board goal is implement the adopted literacy core. I think that's our goal. But what is it?
So is it monitor the adoptive literacy? I mean, do you get rid of implement and say monitor?
Yeah. The other thing that I think that Christy was pointing at is that these, my strategic plan has 5 goals to, or 4 goals to it. There's a lot there. It's a 5-year plan. So there's some of it that's going to be moved on, but we are moving on every goal simultaneously. We have to. But is there a focus? Well, certainly goal 1, you're going to hear about it tonight. That's definitely a focus for us. So I think this idea that somehow we put in here, I think it's the board will work to reduce and maintain lower class size. Adding in some kind of goal that says we want to focus on math and literacy or whatever that is. I think that's good. It just lays out kind of what you want. Now the measurables, again, for you to be able to determine whether or not you're achieving that goal, we have to work out when we're going to report back this information to you. I think that's fair. Totally. But I don't know, we got to figure out what that goal is. And I'll put talk and let some other board members.
So I was thinking about the lowering the class size, which has been a goal of ours for some time, and that That was always pretty easy because it was a number, you know, or a range. It ended up being a range of students in a class or, and it did bring the board focus on that at most board meetings. I mean, we would
had a
look
number.
at, we always
had
looked
a
at,
number.
right at
Yeah.
the end at the enrollment report and the class sizes, we'd always look at that at the board meeting. So I'm just trying to see if we use that as a model, how we do this as a similar model, right? Because that worked well, I thought. And that, you know, that was clearly something the board wanted to, you know, to do. So I don't know. I mean, I did see this on Friday, but I hadn't heard the explanation for it, so. Yeah.
Well, and maybe it's to what Val's saying, it's more about, I guess what I'm coming back to is, and maybe it's a goal around teacher retention, which I think really is inherent in some of this is how can we make sure that, and maybe that's a totally different way to think about it, is this survey of teachers, and this would be teachers who would be willing to take a survey, in particular, working with the unions. And I think I feel pretty confident we'd have people, especially if they knew that survey information was going to be used to make sure we were giving the supports needed. I think people would definitely speak in those surveys. And I think that's a measurable that I haven't seen yet directly. I know we hear from principals, their gauge on what teachers are saying, and we hear anecdotes from when we visit what teachers are saying. But if we can show a consistent confidence from our teachers and feeling like teachers have the supports they need, maybe around this curriculum is what I was thinking could be measurable, because we are really going all in with training for the curriculum. We are doing the training, numbers of teachers going to the training. That would translate, you would think, into teachers feeling confident, more confident in delivering. If we're starting to see that we're doing some of these things that I agree are in the purview of the administrative side, but we're not seeing teacher data and voice saying directly that I'm still feeling like I don't have the supports. I still feel like I don't have the time. We know that teachers need time that doesn't exist, right? We all, we need to give teachers a whole nother year on another plane to be able to do the work they're doing. But I do think when you have that data presented to you on a regular basis, and it's very forthcoming in a very safe space, it does have you really think about, wait a second, no matter how much we think this is happening, if our teachers aren't showing that, we need to pause and really ask a deeper question. And I think when we think about teacher retention and why teachers are leaving, why we can't get teachers to sign up for jobs, I mean, maybe that is what I'm getting at, is without that piece, none of this other work in this framework can be done. The teacher is the key. And I don't, by saying that, I'm not meaning that we're not already checking in with teachers and we don't already value what teachers are saying, but I know that there are teachers that need things that maybe the board doesn't always see directly, nor maybe does the superintendent see directly, or the curriculum director, right? Because the teacher maybe can't even say to their principal that they're frustrated. I mean, so how can we capture that voice and just make sure it's aligned to what we're doing? And by doing that, does that help teachers have a better feeling about staying in this district and feeling like we got them?
So we do capture that voice and we do get that voice back to you because we already run climate and culture surveys, that kind of thing. We also, there's exit tickets after the training that we all use to determine kind of how staff saw it. And still, for me, this is still good. I like the idea of continuing to get information. I just think that, again, we got to keep clear what your role is and what our role is in this work. And somehow we got to figure out, and I like this idea of teacher retention. Again, highlighting teacher retention that is a strong idea for us as far as understanding how we get and keep some of the best teachers. So again, I like that, but I'm just trying to figure out what that goal for you needs to be so that we can do our work, you can do your work and get the information you need to be able to make decisions.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe hearing from, also from our union reps too, about these goals, about what they would like from the board. I mean, do they have suggestions for what the board could have as a goal that, I mean, and I guess I'll push back just a little bit about the climate survey, is that I know that we do get that data, but I've also heard from teachers that depending on how that survey is worded and what questions are on the survey, that there hasn't been a feeling like that everyone's voice is being heard. And I think sometimes that's just a miscommunication where, oh no, we're hearing it, we know. And it's just about finding a way to communicate to make sure we are all getting a chance to be very transparent. And I think it's a hard conversation. It's a hard conversation to have because you don't want to imply that we're not. But I do know there's people that have told me they've taken that survey, and depending on the year, the questions are different. And sometimes hard things were mentioned on the survey, and then the next year that question was not on the survey. Now, I could be wrong. But again, more conversation is to be had about how we make sure that we can do that. So this may be around specifically with our
So
literacy.
I think I had answered you threw out some information there about that survey. I just will make sure we have all the information out there. We typically use the same set of questions year to year so that we can compare them. They've been used, they've been developed and used over time so we can compare. We did use a different survey last time around. There's never, ever any kind of censoring that's going on because we don't like the info. That doesn't happen.
Right, but that might be the impression is what I'm saying. So like, how do we have the conversation?
If you say this in an open meeting, I have to answer that. I can't let that stand out there because that's incorrect information. And I know there's perception, but there's also the reality of how we do this. And that's not it. Totally open. I know we have John working on kind of redeveloping, bringing in the questions we used to ask him, totally open to making sure that we have other questions. He'll take it in front of the union too. So they'll have a chance to talk about that. But that never happens, that we remove a question because we don't like the answers. Never happens.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just,
But it got said. So
It got-
again, I can't.
but
let
it's
that not.
getting said. So again, it's
Yeah.
where the conversation.
They didn't say it to me or else I would have answered it straight out of hand because that is an incorrect thought.
Right.
I have a question. Are all the teachers trained and implementing the Amplify this year? Yes.
Different degrees, right? So you have teachers that are 3 weeks in to Amplify, right?
Well, around like through in the schools.
Right, so they got trained at the beginning of the year, we have another training on October 25th. And for new teachers especially, our TOEFL teacher, special and time and having a lot of attention.
So for me, I'm a big supporter of the teachers, but when it all comes down to it, we need to do better for our kids. The Oregonian just came out with the reading and math scores. That's what I want to focus on. I'm not so much concerned like this. I feel confident that I can implement this. I want to know, are you implementing this curriculum? That's what I would want to know. Not can you, but are you? And what is happening because of it? I think those are the more important questions. Do you have time? Not do you have time? Make time. Like we have to do better with this reading right now. Our scores are horrible. So how can we get the kids' scores better? It's not so much of it like, I do support the teachers, but quite frankly, I'm more concerned with the kids right now than if they feel like they're getting supported enough. I want our students to feel like they're given a good opportunity and having the opportunity to learn the Amplify and learn how to read. And once they are doing better on these scores, then I feel like they're going to do better on all the scores. So for me, I would just say that I just think it should be a little bit more kid focused.
Yeah, I think for me, looking at this, I really appreciate your thoughts and thinking down and the outcomes. When you look at the literacy curriculum adoption, you know, our teachers have been trained. The science of reading, the administrators, and I think that Elena, she showed, I think over 5 years or 3 years, I forget how many I think, what is it, 50% right now of the administrators have signed up for the science of reading. And to me, that's really key, because you're gonna have administrators evaluating the teachers, but also going in and understanding what it takes for phonics, because the majority of administrators at this point have not taught, pre-kinder to third grade reading. That they have the skills and understanding to support them, but also to provide the needs and supplies that they need. What I do like, so the first one I'm not really concerned about, because I think that we have that on a calendar and we're moving forward. I do think that having a number just as information to the board, not, I'd be really interested to see, do you have the support you need to implement this success? Yes, and if not, what do you need? And I know that that's sort of exactly what they're already doing. I know that Arturo, you're already doing that. But something just really short and quick that would give a number. It doesn't have to be real detailed, but if we see that, and this is just for me, my perspective, but if I see that 3 of the schools, they're saying, yes, everything's fine, and 3 of the schools are saying, we're really struggling. For me as a board member, I want to know is, do they need more materials? Do they need more money? Should the board allocate more money to help them in training? Do we need some more aid support? Do we need to hire a substitute teacher in the building to provide more time so that they could get training? So that one I would like to hear. And do you have the time you need to implement the curriculum? And if they say yes, fine. If they say no, I want to know why. Why not? And does that again mean that do we need within the building, or do we need within, like I think somebody said at Harvey Clark last year, that 2 of the teachers got almost 100% with Amplify. Well, if that happened, and there's another school that's struggling, do we as a board need to provide additional money so that teacher, not that I want the regular teacher to leave her classroom, but the teacher could go and observe or something. So those are the things that I would like to tease out to see how, as a board, how do we finance it? How do we support that? And I would like to know that sooner than in June. I mean, and so I like that idea. And the other is, I know that the parents are busy. I know that some of the parents are working 2 and 3 jobs. But I also would like to hear something from the parents. We may hear nothing. We may get, like we were talking about, tonight about the Correggio report and the percentage of parents that participated, and we were trying to tease out, who they were, and that we may get a good response, we may not. But I would just like just a couple little data points here. And like it could be right after report cards, whatever we do, I'm looking for information, and I certainly do not want to burden the teachers or the administrators with additional work. So, I mean, that's always my piece, because I think it's important. I think data is important. And I think this falls under the board will support programs and strategies that will increase academic achievement. And I would say the board will support, I would probably look at it from a financial point of perspective and maybe reword that. But so that's where I'm coming from, is I don't need the administrators to come up and do a big, long presentation, because I recognize that their job is in the school. Their job is to work with the teachers and support the teachers and the kids. But I would like something just real short like this. If people are really struggling with Amplify, we're into our 2nd year, and I know it takes 3 years to really, embrace a new reading adoption. But I would like to hear something in December, and maybe something, the end of February and March. And that would give me information as a board member to say, and I know that Arturo, you could do it, or Dave could do it, saying we need more money because of this.
The plan right now is to report back to you progress through our new assessment system. Archer will talk about this tonight. That's part of his presentation, but that's all set up to give you 3 different reports. So that information will be coming back. I like this idea about taking that one board goal and then pushing in the literacy. If there's a special focus that we want to have on, that you want to have on literacy, that's a place, support programs and strategies to ensure the success of the literacy program or something to that. And then we can begin to the data pieces that I think you've got kind of like number of teachers trained. I do number of teachers trained and to what degree, because that's the other part here is we have folks who are trained in letters, folks who are just trained in Amplify. What level? I think there's actually some ABs and some other levels here too. And then some of these other pieces, I think these are good pieces of information. We can work with these pieces. I just, again, think that I'm trying to figure out how to write the board goal and then get you what you need so that you can make the decisions. Again, this idea of being able to support through resources and or focus, and directing me to move on something or not. That's good.
So I agree with that. And I do think that we need to, we had a goal to loan class sizes. So I do think we need to write a goal that it's aligned to this. And maybe those, we need to throw that one out, put it on paper and have, I like what Kate said about these things and the surveys, but I wouldn't do a monthly. I do, I don't know, periodic.
Are they being assessed in the classroom with
Well,
the?
I don't know. I don't know a good time to do that. The year's really busy.
So we're just
whenever it
finishing,
is.
we're just finishing the fall benchmarking.
Okay.
And so we've got another one winter, we've got another one in the spring. So we've got some times that we could push out some of this information at the same time and bring it back for you when we report.
And that's using the Amplify assessment.
We'll have the Amplify assessment, so they'll be able to, we'll have that in it. 712, we're using STAR, so you'll actually get more information. There's still 2 different assessments there, but we're down to 2.
How often do those happen though?
September, January, and then in the spring.
Perfect. So I would like to see the data from that, and I'd like to see it by building and by classroom.
And I'd like to add one other thing is, I really like this one, K through 6, pre and post. I like reading, I'm good at reading, using a smiley face. It would be very easy, especially those younger children, that would be very easy for them as a kinder. And if you wish, the podcast that I listened to today on the science of reading, they talked a little bit, the input of the kids about how they feel about reading. And that's part of the whole thing about dyslexia is asking kids. You can have a student with A and B, an A or B student. They're still dyslexic and they could do better, but they're struggling. And you can tease out a little bit. It would be very easy, I think, for a teacher, if a student said, I absolutely hate reading. What's going on there? And so anyway, I'd like to hear their input. And I think a smiley face is very easy to do that.
So I think there's an opportunity when the kids are doing M-class. There's a moment there that we could throw them in front of another Google form. And it just has a simple 3-choice thing. The issue there is with kindergarten through whatever, it's like, when and where do you put the survey in front of them? But we haven't, with M-class, they're there sitting down with a support person going through the assessment. It would be pretty easy to then at that point, just give them another choice.
Well, the other thing is is everything on a computer or do they do any individual assessments now?
Individual, but on the computer, so it's a little, instead of, people were scratching out and scoring, it's really just easy for teachers to tap the screen to identify whether they know.
Usually when I did it, a million years ago, is that, you know, that you could just easily say that, yeah, million years.
Sorry.
But you can still do something.
I mean, I'm just thinking that you finish and say, well, see, that's finished, yeah, you know, and if they, you know, it's like, how come, what's up? Yeah, I like my laptop better, or I like my video game, or,
And we can do that, but the other piece there is trying to report that without a data base. That would be the other piece that we need to do. So, next steps.
Well, wait, hold on.
Oh,
There's also this increase in home supports for lowest performing readers, the dyslexia, non-SPED identified struggling readers. What do we have going on for that group of students
For just our struggling readers.
and dyslexic?
So for our struggling readers and dyslexic kids, we go through the MTS process, so they're getting core content like everything else, and as they show reading difficulties, they move up our tiered systems. We don't have anything, we don't do a full out model for dyslexic students. We provide them additional support in the classrooms, and we try to, if we identify early, we have a triggering system to notify parents if there's indicators above and beyond that they might be dyslexic.
so I worry just a little bit because of what we are doing and what we plan. I mean, this is what the whole early literacy piece is all about. So we actually will develop kind of some new ways of working with this specific set of
We
students.
definitely have lots of room for improvement with our system, and part of the grant for the early literacy grant is to articulate a plan to how we engage families.
Well, I mean,
That's
that's-
still in development.
So I'm like you're saying, oh, look, we identify them early. Okay, so you didn't identify them. Now they're in sixth grade. Now what? Now where are they at? What happens?
Yeah, so in sixth grade, we're struggling, not much good is happening from 6 to 12. I think that's an area that we have a lot of room to grow. And there's different philosophies around that, to be honest. I mean, come from a state that had specific dyslexic classes for middle school. That doesn't happen anymore. And I've been doing a lot of, not a lot, I've reached out to colleagues and friends and in other districts, and they really don't have that model here.
Yeah, I would love to see some emphasis on that because we're totally letting them down. And that's not okay. We need to do much better. I don't know if I mean, that's not our job. I can't really say.
Well, but that's, again, you could write a goal that holds me accountable to creating that.
What do you guys think about that?
I think the two priorities for me right now are making sure, and I think it'll be really important before any of what we decide here gets finalized to make sure we're checking with the unions and the teachers in those K-3 classrooms specifically to say, hey, we're thinking about getting a little bit extra data so, you know, how do you feel about this? And make sure that they, number one, say, yeah, okay, we're willing to do this, or we're good with this, or we'd like to add a question. Like, since you guys we're going to put some stuff down, could we add something there? I think that would be helpful. I mean, we know the K-3, and we know that right now we're identifying young, right, with a new program as young as we can. This is just in our district, but like, there's kids that aren't going to be identified right away that will be in the intervention plans immediately. And so I'm not opposed to this secondary focus on what does that look like for parents at home right now, which will look different in a few years as we scale up and increase the supports in the system. But yeah, this year, okay, we don't have those supports yet. Nobody does really well anywhere. So a focus on those families in particular. K-3 maybe is easier, maybe even K, just kinders. We're connected with every parent in the kinders and figuring out what. There is tons of research around little tiny tip that a parent could do, right? Just what would be that one thing that we could quickly identify without necessarily having our whole scale up plan ready, that every single parent could have. What are the tools they absolutely need right now this year while those kids are waiting? I would be really a big fan of that focus for this year. I don't know, Dave, what your thoughts are on like,
Again, we're already focusing on literacy. So again, I think this is a natural thing, just like you had the class size was a priority. There were data coming back to you that you worked with. I think it's easy for us to, I mean, that's a really, not easy, it's a natural thing for the board to focus on. It's like, what is our plan and how is it going? Getting feedback. There's some data that we can give you so that you can make a determination about whether or not we're making the kind of progress. And
but capacity wise for support in home, would it be reasonable to say in these next 7 months that at least we, like the kinders, that group of parents is a possibility of connecting with? I mean, we can't say.
so as part of the early literacy grant, we have to connect with families from 0 to 4. So we'll be doing that outreach. I don't know what the timeline, exact timeline is, but certainly I already know that's part of what's going to have to come out of this early literacy plan is how are we connecting with parents around that group. The other piece, I'm happy to talk to Elena, kind of find out what's possible. I mean, it's again, I think we were mostly talking about kind of younger and what parents could be doing to improve, support, enhance
Yeah.
their performance.
I remember Mary Alice at McMinnville, they did these, I think it was 4 times a year, where they provided dinner and the parents came in with their preschoolers and they did all kinds of activities to show parents how to, you know, to play games with letters and numbers and that. And it was very, very successful there. I have a question is, are we purchasing the Amplified Intervention Program this year? You know,
I can't speak to it. I'll have to get back to you on that. exactly
okay,
what we're
I thought we were going to buy.
They're boost and other things that they just part of
Right,
it.
boost is what I was thinking of
But
too, but
I'll get.
we should get you the full answer.
Because I thought that there was a homework parent piece in it, but maybe not. I don't know, but I thought that, I know that in Newburgh they were doing it. They have had the intervention program in Newburgh on Amplify, and they really, really liked it and found it helpful because then the teachers did not have to try to recreate a whole nother separate intervention,
Right.
you know, piece for the kids. So, I'm hoping that we're gonna do it because there was a homework piece that was a connection for parents and kids to help support. Mom and dad could support at home.
Yeah, I'd still be wanting to plug that we've already missed some kids that have dyslexia.
So one of the things, even though the early literacy grant is for the younger, we want to take advantage of the opportunity to look at K-12. So one-on-one meetings have been bringing up although that's great, it's just a component. We got to look at K-12 literacy, and actually we'll talk about that later today too.
Great.
Because for us as a district, CNI goal, it's K-12 literacy. We can't just be looking at the younger ages. We got to have parents K-12. So those program leaders we continue.
Okay, great.
So next steps. How would we like to move forward? Because what I hear is there's an interest in kind of doing some kind of focus around literacy. Is there, just trying to figure out how we could get something in front of you that you could then work on.
Christy, what did you think about adding it to goal 1?
Yeah, I mean, this is that 5th bullet or whatever it is. I think we could reword that and that fits within goal 1 and maybe just a couple board actions and measurables under it that we would expect, but
Would you be fine with adding the
Yeah.
measurables under it? And
Well, we can definitely tell you what we're measuring and then it will bring to you so that you can take a look at it.
then if we had other questions, we could email before the meeting where this is gonna come up.
Right.
Ask if we had other questions or other data if we wanted to see. Would you guys feel fine and comfortable with that? What do you think,
Nate?
Nate?
Sounds good.
Hey, what do you think about all this is going on here? Are you just like, oh my gosh, I did not know I was getting into this?
I'm a little bit tired right now, but,
Like, you had a good workout and you.
but I'm writing it all down.
Guess you're doing cross country.
Cross country.
So I got the literacy one. Was there, I kind of heard a little bit more about,
Struggling readers. and-
yeah, the kind of struggling in-home reader kind of
It
thing.
seems like we should do something.
Well, that, and I think it kind of correlates with we heard from parents, just a want of more engagement, right, in general overall, but that does kind of fall in under that umbrella of engagement with our community
I
parents.
feel like we gotta really specify that.
Yeah.
It might get forgotten, a little bit lost.
Well, under the goal one, the last bullet there, the board will support its decisions by using data.
Well, that one,
Do we want to just put literacy under, within that, use that and sort of add to that?
Or we had it on the sixth bullet, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The board will support programs
Yeah.
and strategies that will increase academic achievement for students that have historically experienced academic disparities. So that's where,
yeah.
I mean, the
Either
probably
one.
goals go.
Mhm.
Either one is
Yeah.
fine by me.
Okay, so,
Struggle.
right, so I'll work kind of to struggling reading and then kind of this literacy goal. And then kind of place underneath there what the different measurables that we're gonna be looking for to report back to you.
Okay. That
Okay,
sounds good to me.
I can
How
work
about
that.
you? Good, is that good? Yeah.
Great. Okay. Anything else? No, we're gonna get a little break.
Yeah, we're just gonna
Reconfigure. Okay, I will adjourn the work session at 6:17 PM. Thank you, guys. the September 25th, Board of Directors meeting. I'm gonna call it to order at 6:30. We already did a roll call of board members, but I need to do it again. No, great. Thank you. Please rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're gonna start with the introduction of our audiences. We'll start on this side and work our way. Yeah, Sarah, just introduce yourself, say hi.
Ricky Carter, Director of Nutrition Services. My voice is a little hoarse from the game this weekend.
Dude, mine too, it was a good one.
Yeah, apologies.
John O'Neill, Assistant Superintendent.
Kim Sharon, Director of Student Services.
David Warder, Communication/Technology.
I'm Sarah Field. I'm a parent.
Great,
Elijah Keith,
great.
Danielle Spade, I'm current kindergartner. Cool. Lisa Patina, parent. Lori Nelson, parent.
Great.
Osvaldo Garcia, District Coordinator of Equity, Migrant Education, and English Language Development.
Perfect.
And you live business.
Udo Rongelin, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Megan,
Colin Snooker.
great.
Sarah Vogel, teacher and president of the Forest Preservation Association.
Okay, thank you everybody so much for joining us tonight. We're happy to have you here. Approval of tonight's agenda. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented. Second, okay, all in favor? Aye. Kate says yes too. I think great.
Okay.
We're gonna move on to correspondence and celebrations. Does anybody have anything that they want to share? Yes, Christine, you can go
I
first.
will celebrate we did a visit at Tom McCall last week and went through about three years.
That's great.
And that was my first visit through Tom McCall, and Principal Summer Johnson did a wonderful job of taking us around to different classrooms, and teachers were just so welcoming of three big bodies coming in and being able to observe how they're putting the CHAMPS curriculum into play. And we saw different ways that teachers were, the signage was up and teachers cueing kids and kids really engaged. So that was very exciting. And as is true for all teachers and principals, as we were walking to the gym and back from the gym, there was a particular student that was not wanting to come down off of the play structure high, and his instructional aide was struggling. And so Summer just ran right, Dave and they both just, without even thinking, they just took their positions, and Summer went right up to the top and Dave went right down below. And the three of the adults, actually it was a pretty sweet moment of support in real time of our kids. So it was a really good experience. So thanks to the Tom McCall staff for being so welcoming. And I don't remember the name of the secretary there, but this woman, no matter when she came to the door, has the smile. The smile, it's like, I can't, it was pretty interesting. I mean, all of the secretaries are really good about that, but that's my celebration for tonight. Okay, I have some correspondence. I'm also on the library commission, and we had a meeting last week, and I just wanted to share the summer reading by the numbers, what they did this year. They had a total of 1,308 kids and teens who participated in the summer reading. They were able to give away 1,697 free books, and the total hours read was 8,636. That was for the kids. They also did it for the adults. And there was a bunch of participants with that too in hours read. But what I wanted to highlight with that is that they did a new thing this year where they matched dollars donated, and were able to donate $3,500 to Habitat for Humanity. So it was great, very successful year, a lot of work, and they did a great job. All right, do you want to do your report all at once? Or?
Yeah, I can do it
Okay,
all at once.
so we'll go to Nate. Nate, what do you got going on for us?
Hello, okay, well, it's very loud, jeez. All right, so for school board or student representative report, honestly, we don't have too much going on at the high school. We are working on homecoming stuff. ASB, Associate Student Body, is going pretty well. We're doing stuff for Senior Sunrise. We have like a lot of great stuff coming from that. The parents have been working very diligently on that. We have like 100 pounds of bacon coming. I'm very excited. We are planning OASC, which is a leadership event / convention, which we're really excited for. We get to like stay at this hotel for like 3 days, and we get to go to this convention. I'm really excited for that. We have a student body master calendar made by my vice president, and it's very nice. So it'll go out to the entire student body, and hopefully we'll also go out to the parents soon. And it'll be hopefully a way to make things a lot easier and like make communication a lot easier. We have introduced spirit points, which I'm very excited for. Hopefully it will engage our student body. We have also got a lot of volunteer opportunities, including the food pantry, which is something that our service committee started a while ago, and they've been keeping it going. It's been very successful, and we are projected to like almost double the people that are coming with the promotions that we're doing. So very exciting. And we also have a new form of homecoming court nominations. It will be self-nominated now, which is really exciting because when I got homecoming court, I did not want to be homecoming court. So now we will only have people that actually want to be homecoming court, which makes my life a lot easier. We are planning the parade, and this time we're doing some things differently. Hopefully it'll be a lot easier of an event. It's going to start at Forest Grove High School and end at Forest Grove High School. So people that weren't able to drive around or get to the district office, it'll be a lot easier for that, so that's great. Also Hispanic Heritage Month is this month, so we have a Spirit Week planned, and it's just a really exciting month for a lot of our student body. And finally, we have our first student council meeting, which is very exciting. I will be hosting it, and it'll be a very great event, hopefully. But yeah, thank you guys.
Excuse me, did you say the route, did you say the whole route or just that it was starting at the high school and ending at the high school?
Just that's really the
Okay,
main.
so maybe the next meeting we'll hear, or maybe they can post somewhere where it's gonna be, 'cause I don't know, is it still gonna go all the way down to the district office and come back, or no?
No,
That's what I was guessing, it might just go down
and
there.
I gotta remember the exact, it's still gonna use B, it's gonna use main, but it's gonna stop before we hit, Pacific.
Okay,
And, there was a lot of traffic regulation challenges that we were meeting. So we're gonna bring it up and then we'll curl it back around. We're still I just don't know which way it's going. But it'll that's 21st, I think, is the street that we usually come down to Harvey Clark. So we'll come up, make a loop, and then come back.
okay, sounds good, yeah, we'll have a meeting before that parade happens, before homecoming, so we'll have more information about that. We will move on to Superintendent Parker.
So I wanted to start with, we got some celebrations, some great news. It has to do with our high school unified program. So I wanted to read the Forest Grove High School Unified Programs received the 2023 Special Olympics Unified Champion School National Banner recognition. Special Olympics Unified Champion School has an inclusive school climate and exudes a sense of collaboration, engagement, and respect for all members of the student body and staff. A unified champion school receiving the national banner recognition is one that has demonstrated a commitment to inclusion by meeting the 10 national standards of excellence. The primary activities within these include Special Olympic Unified Sports, where students with and without disabilities train and compete as teammates. Inclusive youth leadership and whole school engagement. Banner Unified Champion Schools should also be able to demonstrate they have a safe, sustainable, or have a plan in place to sustain these activities into the future. This program has actually been running for a long time. So again, just kudos to both the folks who created the program and are continuing to sustain it. So again, congratulations. Then we've got Nate did a great job. I just wanted to highlight the back to school night coming up on the 27th. The senior sunrise, I know it's always a big, and then that homecoming parade again. The district office will be out with our own
Lawn chair brigade.
to march in the parade. So we're all getting ready for that. Lastly, I just wanted to take a second and thank Eileen and the Midco. You know, the busing at the high school is such a challenge for us after last year, after the pandemic, and now in the later start time, and then the lineup that we're currently, how we're lining the buses in the lane.
We're getting most of the students out in minutes and they're finishing it within 25 minutes, which is, didn't happen all last year. So there's some really good things, both the high school and Midco kind of collaborated on to fix some things. So Karen sent a thank you over to Midco today, so just saying, hey, it's 3 times in 3 weeks, we've been out in 25 minutes. So that was, so and that's it for me.
That's great to hear. That was a big struggle last year, so that's great news. Thanks for sharing that with us. At this time, I would like to invite Sarah Ogle up to give a full report from the Fort Grove Education Association. Is the mic on, Kathy? Good. Yep, great.
Thank you. This feels a little close. Thank you for allowing FGEA the opportunity from here on out to have a chance to talk to the board and to Superintendent Parker. I want to start today with introductions. I'm Sarah Ogle, the FGEA president. I've been in the district for 20 years. I've taught at NAMS in the high school. FGEA represents between 340 and 350 certified staff on average. And aside from bargaining our contract, FGEA advocates on the county and statewide level for 2 things that we all can agree are important: funding and resources. FGEA is considered one of the strongest unions in Oregon. FGEA leadership is elected by members, and currently it's made up of myself, vice president, secretary, treasurer, membership chair, and then at-large positions from elementary, middle, and high school. And between all of us, we represent different buildings, including CALC. In addition, we added an equity chair this year, which is a familiar face at the school board meetings. You probably noticed Diana Smith, who is a teacher at Joseph Gale for many years and recently moved to CALC. She is our school board rep, and she's also going to be representing equity and specifically this year focusing on dual language programs. In addition, we have building reps. The allotment is 20, for every 20 members, there is 1 building rep. We come together the second Wednesday of every month to discuss issues in buildings, collaborate, share ideas, and problem solve. This year, our goal with FGEA is communication, which is why we're here. We can be a tremendous resource to talk to the boots on the ground, the people in action when it comes to feedback about implementation specifically of curriculum and policy. And we thank you for inviting us to the table. We also thank you for mentioning your goal of getting in links this year. FGE members would love to welcome you. And if you have any questions or need help to facilitate this, please let me know. Thank you.
I think so is Diane going to be the one that's going to be joining us most of the time, or
yeah, she would be. She had a family emergency tonight, but it's either going to be her or myself. But we are actually hoping that I don't do most of the talking. We all know I'm a little bit of a loose cannon, so Kate always cringes when I'm up with a microphone. But we're hoping to invite, depending on your topics, hoping to invite specialists in the areas that you are going to be talking about and help you to know different people in our district. And as building reps, we actually do rotate among buildings so that we can all get to know and be in solidarity with other people in the district and get to know, what our district really looks like.
great. Well, thanks. We like having you here. Thank you. Moving on to unscheduled. I don't know if I can. It's died. Bro, we might need new mics. No, I'm good. So unscheduled public appearance. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Public comments will be made in person or submitted through the designated form on the webpage to be read by district staff or registered Zoom participants who indicated through the form they wanted to provide their comment live. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol for board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel are not allowed at this time. We have, I think, just one public comment. Is it Alden?
Yeah, Alden Snow.
Great. Alden Snow is going to come up here and join us for a moment.
Oh, thank you. I kind of ended up at the wrong meeting. I meant to go to the building PTA meeting, but it seems like it's appropriate here too. So the power went out, it's been going out a lot lately, and this is kind of more of a rural school, in that it's like on the forest road a bit. So seen this pretty concerning. I'm afraid that like, especially with winter coming, kids could get stuck in there for days or something if there's a really bad storm. And, you know, missing school in itself is a pretty bad thing. So I'd just like to encourage that, we do the right investigation, figure out what we need to do to make sure that the power is not into the generator. Maybe even look at some of the Inflation Reduction Act money and see if there's an opportunity to put solar panels and, you know, power walls or something in there. So thank you for the support. And my family is very happy with the school district and in particular the unified programs, especially Jill and Kelly Trout have been tremendous support for my son recently graduated with tons of these. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing that with us. I think.
I can give you on that one. So, the biggest issue that we have in dealing with the power going out is, the sewage goes into a tank and then it's pumped, out of the tank and up to a drain field. When the power goes out, that leaves us about an hour, hour and a half of time before the sewage starts to back up. So we just today started kind of talking through this whole generator piece. I don't know, we're kind of investigating what the cost is, but trying to figure out how to keep the school running. So yes, we're absolutely starting to look at this and trying to figure out how to deal with that. So, yeah.
Thank you. So anything help with the fundraiser or anything else?
Okay, we got your number. Thank you for coming up and speaking about that, though. Appreciate it. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent items the board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? I will. Nothing? Okay, we also are going to add an addendum to personnel to this consent agenda. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the addendum to personnel.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0. Okay, tonight we have some presentations. John is back with his micro mini enrollment report. For all three.
The good news is, it's so much better.
Yeah.
Than the last time I was here on September 7th, when it looked like we were 240 students down. We're actually students down.
Oh, that's great.
Did a great job checking enrollment. It worked very well. So anyway, so you can take a look. We'll continue to bring enrollment reports to you after the first. Also on October 1st, we'll also have class size. Remember page 2 that I bring to you, and so you can take a look at that. But we're very happy with this. This report reflects students that attended at least one day of school. All the students that have been a no-show have been dropped. Anecdotally, I got a text today at a conference that I was at from Mariella Morales. I got 2 4th graders today, and they're starting to come in, which is good. So historically, October 1 is our high point. Like I said last meeting, and then we start to slowly drop off throughout the course of the year. So I'm looking forward to bringing back the October 1 report. Any questions?
Any bubble areas that you're concerned about?
We have gone ahead and addressed 2 bubble areas, the ones I shared with you at the last meeting. But I mean, we're looking at the 3rd grade, Harvey Clark, 27, 28, but there's also 23. We're looking at Cornelius, 2nd grade, 27, 29, 27. But when we looked, what we looked at was when we added at Hill Hill, it was 29.1. And when we added at, I think it's Fern Hill, it was 29.5 is where we were like, okay, we need to take care of this right now. So we're monitoring this. And the principals are, like I said, texting each time they get student enrollment in the high numbers.
How come there's such a big discrepancy at Thomas Hall West? There's one 5th grade class that has 31, but then there's a few that have only 24 and one has 22.
Yes, that's a great, that would be our, potentially it's our dual language classes where students are taught instruction in Spanish So those are numbers that are either high or low. But from here on out, after the 10-day drop, we are starting to balance. Classes are
Well, how many, so is that 31
a real number, yes.
yeah, so what kind of class is that? Is that the dual language class or not dual language class? And how
No,
can we?
that is not a dual language class. I know that for sure because that's my niece.
Okay, well then it seems like we have other non-dual language classes where we can get that number a little bit.
Well,
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have 22 and 24 and 31.
so, like I said, they're gonna take a look at these numbers and they're gonna, what they do primarily is as new students come in, they keep this up to date and they look at that as they place new students.
Yeah, okay. Good to know. I would not be stoked. My daughter was in that 31 class. Thanks. Any other questions? Do you guys see any other things you want to ask about? No?
We'll check.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I'll check in with Summer and just kind of get the backstory on that. Yeah.
Moving on. Arturo, strategic plan, goal 1, instruction and learning.
So just wanted to give a little bit of intro to Archer on this one. So as a cabinet, we discussed how we were going to get the board information about each of the goals. And so this is kind of the first one. The instruction is definitely the most important. I mean, all the goals are important, but certainly this is the one that we're focused on the most. So Arturo is the first step to kind of run through how the strategic plan addresses what we need to do in instruction. And he'll review what's up and running, what's in progress, what their next steps are.
Great.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. During your work session, you were speaking my language, so I'm super excited to share some news from curriculum and instruction. And if you remember, Elena was here last meeting where she was really honing in on literacy. So we're going to zoom out a little bit because this includes literacy and more. It's what we're doing with curriculum instruction moving forward. And so we'll hit the next slide. Maybe. There we go. All right, so the purpose of the department plans to support teacher instruction and improve student learning outcomes this year. That is our primary purpose, and it's aligned with our goal 1, which is improving instruction and learning, and in particular, focusing on high quality instruction for each and every student. So we're going to talk about that as we go on through this presentation. So why do we exist? We exist to partner with schools and provide both teachers and principals with the resources that they need to improve student learning. I want to call attention to the image on the right. This is a concept that comes from the Center of Educational Leadership at the University of Washington. And it outlines that the first priority that any district needs to have is around student learning. And it really calls out the research that suggests that teachers have the greatest impact on student learning every day, right? And so because they're closest to the classroom every single day. The research also tells us that the second most important person in the schoolhouse is a principal, because they impact teachers who impact students. Third is central office, curriculum and instruction and others. And then the superintendent of the board absolutely is part of this alignment, this through line, if you will, where all of us working together help achieve student learning. Now, this can go sideways. There are times in organizations where sometimes this alignment isn't there. For example, could be, you hear sometimes top-down organizations where central office is dictating what's happening and not really thinking through the teacher implications, principal implication, or engaging them in the process. Similarly, there are instances where the principal isn't part of this, that instead central office is working directly with teachers in hopes of student learning. So this calls out the fact that a highly effective school system really has an effective through line that invests in teachers first, principals, in order to support student learning. So, and research also tells us that we need to have a strong focus. Although everything is important and our strategic plan is important, this came up during the work session. Our instructional focus this year is centered on K-12 Tier 1 best practices in literacy and math. Okay, we're in the second year of a lit adoption, and we're going through a math adoption this year for curriculum next year. And so we need to do some learning with that. In addition, one of the unique challenges that we faced in the past is we really want to do a better job of having a K-12 lens in both literacy and math, because it impacts them, right? One of the great things that, as I've walked into this position, that I appreciate the board and central office leaders, is there was a very purposeful reorganization in creating the position that I was fortunate to get. The fact is, John was managing this position and many other things, and to be able to say, we're going to have a curriculum instruction director in order to have this focus and maintain this focus is a big deal. So I thank everybody for your work behind that. But we want to make sure that this focus is driving our work with teachers, with principals, and in our district-wide learning as well. So some of the things that are up and running this year that have already happened, we've been onboarding new teachers. We have 52-ish new teachers that we've been working with, or our TOSAs have been working with, hands-on, making sure that they're transitioning well as building principles and building supports. We're in year 2 of Amplify rollout that we've talked about, and the professional learning that's associated with bringing people on board, but also continuing to develop in professional learning for our folks who are returning this year and are into their second year. Another big deal is we have new local assessments. So we've streamlined. I think we went from 6 or 7 different assessments down to 3 in terms of reading and math. So we have M-Class, which is K6 reading, and then STAR, which is 7-12. Maps for math is 7-11. I mean K11. Sorry, K11. So this idea that we're able to now compare data to one another to really target this data, we will be bringing this data to you as a board 3 different times this year, so we can monitor our progress and see how we're doing, classroom to classroom, building to building, across schools, those types of things. Okay, so this is a very big deal for our district. I'm happy that work has been done prior to me getting here. Very grateful for that. Last but not least, what's up and running is principals as instructional leaders. During retreat, and as soon as last Thursday, we actually, as a group of principals and curriculum and instruction and student support services, walked classrooms together to talk about what good instruction looks like, to begin wrestling with what does that mean for our leadership actions as instructional leaders. So we are making a huge shift in terms of our investment in teachers, as well as adding principals, instructional leadership conversations twice a month, focused on K-12 literacy and best practices. On the top, it says what's in development. So some things in the works. The benchmark. Oh, you're okay. It's okay. I mentioned earlier that benchmark progress monitoring, the data sets we're going to bring to you 3 times a year. PK-12 professional learning, we're making sure that we're aligning professional learning to our instructional focus. This year, as I mentioned, we have the math adoption. We're going to do some dual language learning, and the last 3 are all associated with our strategic plan. So the instructional framework, learner profile, and MTSS supports are all outlined in our strategic plan. So those are work that we're starting to do.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Attendance, how are you addressing attendance?
Absolutely. So attendance is a part of our MTSS system. Kim and her team have tackled this. Thank you, Kim. After developing systems within the school and district-wide to provide us data. When we use our Panorama system, Panorama is also a new data warehouse, and it's going to be an MTSS system where a teacher can pull up Panorama. It'll call up attendance, survey, behavior data, as well as academic data. And so you could look holistically as a student on how they're doing on these interim assessments. And you can see, wow, attendance is great, but academics is poor. Or attendance is poor and vice versa, right? And so we, besides that feeding into the MTSS, Kim and her team are working diligently to make sure that we are tightening up our system for attendance, because that's an area that we have some work to do.
That's bad, but what about actually getting the kids back in the building? I didn't realize the last year that our elementary kids and attendance issues.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a variety of strategies. I'll turn over to Kim. Happy to share the mic if you're okay with it.
All right.
Had attendance teams running at almost every school for a few years. Obviously, the bigger schools have a lot more resources. The high school, for instance, has a lot of folks. Part of that has been home visits to parents and communication and just outreach. And so part of the work that my team is doing is we're getting together a larger committee of stakeholders from buildings and various departments. And we are going to talk about how we can support buildings and the process that we're going to use in each building. And so a lot of that work's already being done in the building. We're just going to create a system where everyone's kind of doing the same thing. And then also figuring out what are those pieces that we're missing at some of the other buildings. What kinds of supports do they need to be able to intervene with families? And what resources do we need available? We also have the great pleasure of working with someone from the ESD who is full-time with us now, and he's helping to do some of that work. He assists the attendance teams on making sure they have displayed roles and responsibilities, standardized things that they do, and how to look at our data. So we're not there yet. We have a lot of improvement to do. Part of the role of the district level team will be to meet monthly and look at our overall attendance at all the schools and the district level, report back to cabinet, and then we can report back to the board any of those findings.
Do we know why the kids are not attending?
So there's a lot of different reasons. Last year, the high school did interviews with over 500 different kids on this exact situation. So we work out 16 kids, but there's a lot of different situations happening here. I don't know if I can say it's this.
Yeah, I was thinking more of K through 6. But not the high school is different.
Yeah.
Different ballgame. I mean, still attendance is attendance, but I was curious as to elementary one.
Yeah, I know there's probably a difference between enrollment and attendance. So I think if we're asking why students haven't enrolled or we haven't gotten kids back, I don't know the answer to that. There are a variety of reasons why students are attending. That's kind of a deeper level conversation. But like Dave said, it's a lot of variables. That's what we're trying to figure out. And we know there are evidence-based practices that we are using and want to continue to use to be able to intervene. And just make sure that we're getting those kids to school on a regular basis and reducing our chronic absences.
Are we seeing it across Washington County?
Yeah. Actually, probably across the state, we're seeing attendance issues.
So where are the students is a New York Times article. I just Googled it right now, and it provides amazing information across the entire state. Okay, we'll do. It's all states are covered. It's nationwide.
Well, that was my follow-up question, maybe to Kim, was just that, do we actually, so we kind of know, is there a way to know, like, to just track very quickly, like, oh, there's six, more families working for this, so we actually could see changes in patterns. When you guys make those contacts at home, we just document quickly what was the reason given, whether that's the reason or not. That's what the
We definitely do. And then there might be anecdotal data we follow up with when we're having conversations and, interviewing families and talking with them. In Panorama, we have the ability to do interventions for attendance and track those interventions. Right now, the high school is actually using that, and I looked at it today, they are actually using those plans and, sending out different messages and intervening with parents, and they can track that information. We're not there yet with all the buildings, but that's our hope to get to that point.
I would be interested in seeing what number is, what are those reasons to break down per school and is, we have it already in the system? I would be curious.
I mean, if the board wants that as a presentation further, once we get kind of up and running, I mean, I'm happy to bring the data that you want.
How much is the childcare? Is that a big issue, childcare for parents?
I don't know. We know there are some families where older siblings are taking care of kids. I don't know how frequent that is. But I'm not sure. That's a good question.
And I think, isn't there a waiting list now for the programs? It's not fair just for the new program to be able to have their options. Okay, very good.
No, it's okay. This is great. I mean, they're all tied together, right? I mean, attendance is tied to student achievement, sound engaging instruction is tied to attendance. I mean, they're all intertwined and we know that. And here's what I want you to know is the CNI department understands that we have a lot of work to do, that at the end of the day, we need our students learning. We need our students growing, right? We need our students growing academically. And each and every student, and we need to be able to be able to track that growth. As a parent myself, you expect to send your child to school and to have a year's worth of growth, right? And for some kids, they need a year plus. And as a curriculum and instruction department, we've got to be able to narrow down our scope so we can get to that level and understand how what we are doing or not doing to impact student learning. So I'm excited to be in this position and have faced that challenge. Some next steps, I am going to be scheduling time in each building to do teacher listening sessions. To ask them, what is it that curriculum and instruction is doing well? What is it that we are not doing well? And what is it that they would like to see more of from curriculum and instruction? We need to increase and enhance communication. People need to know we exist and that we are here to support teachers and serving students. We also need to highlight the great things that are going on because they're happening every day. I've been in many schoolhouse, many schools and classrooms, and we have amazing teachers doing amazing work. And as curriculum instruction, we need to be able to put that out there and share that story around great things happening in instruction. Last but not least, we're talking about rebranding a little bit. Why not, right? Instead of curriculum instruction, it might be teaching and learning because we want to make sure, we want to take advantage of the opportunity to bring people in and to know that we're all in this together to affect teaching. So just want to share with you a little bit of an overview on what we have going on. Any questions or comments?
I'm liking the rebranding. Okay. Thanks, presentation. Any questions or comments?
No, Howard.
Okay.
So my one wondering is, I'm realizing now that I don't think you have the set of goals, objectives, strategies for one. I think you've seen goals and objectives, but I don't think you have the more detailed.
They're here, they're in this packet.
Okay. There's actually even more detail that they're working on that we will send like goal ones through. So you can get a look at kind of at least see what the different things that they're working on.
Yeah, could you bring it printed next time maybe? Copy for my folder?
Yeah.
Great.
I just have one comment and it has to do with attendance from being a teacher and being an administrator. It's really hard. I know we ask questions about why they aren't in class or why they're in school. And the answer, it varies. It really does vary. And it's a really across the nation, across the state, attendance is a challenge. And so I hope we can get a handle on it, but it's a really hard. That's
one of those as a principal too. You keep chipping away at it, right? You never give up.
Right.
Even when it's up and down, you just never give up.
Right.
Because the message that it sends to others.
The other thing that I think Arturo has brought is this, all of the schools have attendance teams. Some are more advanced than others. It's how are we getting rid of the variability? Because we should have similar classes. So Kim and her team, that's what they're kind of working on right now is kind of what are the minimum pieces that we're going to do in every school? How do they look the same? Trying to pull out that variability piece, because that's, I think, one of the issues. While we've got these teams, they operate differently. They might not have all the same processes. So that's part of what we're trying to align.
And that those processes are rooted in research and best practices by actually maximizing the investment we make into it.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about is, childcare for parents, but also after school programs and being so far out west, both are at the end of the road. And that's why I've been a real supporter of Washington Kids. And Chuck and Steve Riley, because, there's just not a lot of, if you're involved in sports, it's great. But there's not a lot of options for our kids here in the school district. And I know that we're a lower socioeconomic community. So if we identify some areas of needs by our parents, I don't know if the legislators, they have lots of them right now. And that's why I've been a big supporter of Washington Kids. I just think our kids need support after school.
Okay, great. Thanks, Arthur. I appreciate it. At this time, we're moving on to future action items. We have a few things to discuss. We're going to start with superintendent goals by Superintendent Berger.
So I've attached my set of goals, which are basically to enact the strategic plan. So you've got on there the first couple. This has some of the more detailed strategy outcomes that we're looking for. This is, actually, these are the pieces that I was talking about sharing with you regarding.
I'm looking at the Zoom.
Oh, it's too small.
No, it's easier. Okay.
But again, this is the work that I'm forwarding this year is I need to make sure that we make progress. This plan is a 5-year plan, so some of this is going to be moving and some of it will not be, it'll be different. But you've got the 4 sets, the 4 goals, what I'm going to do. I added in a goal around visibility. That was something that came out of and then the last thing I did is that we were looking for some numbers, but I added in the longitudinal growth goals. This is already what we've agreed to as part of the aligned guidance. These are again targets that we're shooting for. These felt like a more balanced way to go. Again, these are part of the line guidance, so I'm going to need a report on this and explain why we did or did not hit those targets. As part of our line guidance, there's like 5 years, so you can kind of see how they're increasing them over time. And we didn't choose these are actually chosen by the state. This is how they're measuring our progress. And so with that, I would kind of turn it to you for conversation, changes that you'd like to see or
regular attenders, Dave, that last one, is that regular attendance, it's not attendance.
It's an attendance. Okay. Specifically talks about, I think it's students who are attending school 90% or more of the time. So it's the numbers. We're currently, and we're not different. This is where almost all school districts are right now, which is the numbers of kids who have 90% or more attendance is in the 60s, 70s kind of range. So it's a very challenging number. We also have a lot of sickness going around. We've had, again, lots of staff out. We've had challenges to cover our subs every week over the last 3. So part of this regular attendance thing is some sickness that we've had over the last couple of years. But this is still an issue, and it's not different going from district to district right now.
Is this K through 12?
Yes.
And Dave, ninth grade on track is, it used to be passing 5 classes or 6 or more credits in the year, and also they have an attendance portion of that. Do they still have that, or?
I believe, I
I don't know what that track has. I believe it's just 6 or more credits. Okay, got it. But I will check that to make sure. Okay.
I think it's just.
Yeah, okay, all right. Maybe I'm mistaken about the attendance part. And so the idea, of course, with that, the ninth grade on track is that if you're on track in the ninth grade, you're more likely to progress year by year.
Yeah, there's strong research. It comes out of the Chicago schools around this ninth grade on track is very highly correlated to graduation rates.
Right, and I would imagine the high school probably doing quite a bit of work with ninth graders and focusing on them and to make sure they're on track.
There's a lot of work out there. Again, specifically, as soon as they get off track, then we're spending all of this energy and time getting them the credits that they should have earned in the first place. So it becomes kind of a double problem at the high school, because you're not only trying to get them credits, you're trying to make sure that they don't lose track on the whatever English or whatever they're in sophomore, junior. And so this is trying to keep them on track is probably our best idea, is to most efficiently use our resources.
Yeah, okay.
Give me an example of stretch target.
So this was she's at the longitudinal growth. So there was a process that the state went through to basically look at kind of and they did this mathematically, and to be honest, I don't know exactly what formula. Basically, they took what they thought your baseline target should be, where your stretch target would be, and then they have this kind of a gap closing target that says you have to achieve at least this percentage closing the gap. So they went through and kind of calculated this for each of our areas. And it kind of created, on the graph wise, it created kind of an upper and a lower line, and then kind of a line that we're targeting. That's kind of what they did.
And they have these for all schools.
Yes.
Okay.
Every 197 districts calculated these last spring as part of the aligned guidance. And this will be how they're viewing the success of that student investment money.
Is this on the report card?
I'm sure, you know, the report card's interesting right now because it's still based on the state test scores, which kids have an option to take. Right. I can see them moving more towards something like this because of this. At least we're back at a 5-year cohort rate, the 4-year graduate. There's no way to the 3rd grade ELA would still be, I don't know, that's still a sketchy piece. But most of these, I think, are actually pretty solid pieces of data.
Right. Okay.
Anything else?
If you have.
So the one, I mean, there's so much here, but the one, and I'm gonna say multiple things in one big bubble, and it's just things to put out there for us to think about, but around goal 5, expanding visibility and communication. You heard from Sarah, an invitation, I believe, to all of us, board included, please, we welcome you with open arms. And when that was brought up at our retreat, I think I asked the board, being new to the board, how does the board itself evaluate our own performance? And I think at that point, Dave was gonna look into, I don't think this board has really done that officially. And so we were gonna look into some ways. There are boards that do evaluations of their performance, and are they a dynamic board or a visionary board? Or so I don't know the answer to that because I haven't been on this board, like how the community would evaluate how we're doing as a board. But that's the lens I'm looking at all the things we're doing, is how do we know what we're doing is actually working? And so the only thing that comes up to me on the, because I love goal 5, expanding visibility and strong communication. But there's parts of it, I think, I'm curious, my wonderings are, what's behind that? So when we're hearing that we need to be more visible, I mean, as a board, I have more questions to ask, which is a conversation I'll have with students. Why? Right, because, and then, so I went into Tom McCall, for instance, I'll use myself as an example, did my visit, was in the classroom, interacted with some kids, saw some teachers, and afterwards I wondered, okay, what, as a teacher in that building, what do they think about me being there as a board member? How do I know that my presence in the school had a positive effect? Did it meet an expectation of what those teachers are wanting for why I'm in there? I don't know, because I'm not really sure why they want me in there. Now, I know on my side, it was valuable because I was able to hear from Dave, what Dave is doing when he's in there from an instructional lens. I was able to see plenty of things, but that last piece of like, okay, if that was my personal goal to be in there, now I'm like, well, wait, before I go the whole year and I can check off that I was in the buildings, I don't really have a way to check to see if me being in the building was useful for some people. So, and then at the same time, an expectation that a superintendent should be in buildings. If we are asking our superintendent to really drill down on instruction and work with teachers and work with principals, again, just like teachers never have enough time, one superintendent also does not have enough time. So somewhere in this conversation around visibility might need to be our board saying, hey, teachers and union and parents, like, our superintendent will be in the buildings doing X, Y, Z, but also will not be because he's over here doing this piece because our board is prioritizing their kids. So it's a bigger conversation about how we're communicating in general about the meaning of this particular goal. So that's my wondering is, let's say that Dave now goes back into the building because he's heard that. Okay, well, how do we know that him being in the building is resulting in better outcomes for kids? I mean, there's lots of research saying just adults and supervisors in a classroom ups the game. I know as a teacher, when the superintendent walked in, I was a better teacher. Not because I wasn't a good teacher before, but it was true. It elevated my game. So there's research around that. Besides that, are we able to find out from the teachers, like, is this meeting the goal of what you want? I think deep down, my guess is that teachers are wanting a closer connection to know what's going on. Because I'll be honest, all my years in Hillsborough, I never really knew what was going on at the district office. We were just talking about this. I don't know what the superintendent was doing as a teacher. And I taught for years. I have an idea. But you don't know as a teacher all that's going on. I saw it in real time. So we're at Tom McCall. He's taking multiple calls about things going on. He's interacting with the principal. Now he's out with the kids. Then there's a kid on the play structure. He's coming over. Then he has to go to XYZ. So a parent or a teacher that's in the building might not see those pieces. So it's kind of, I'm not sure about what we're tracking here and if it's appropriate yet, because I'd be willing as a board member to say, I don't really know if there is time for you to be in all the buildings all the time, especially if I want that time prioritized with our principals and our teachers. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And Sarah, you might speak to that too as a union rep, like what's realistic for what would be that expectation? But that's a cool conversation I think to have. There's a lot there. And close the bubble. And okay, time to go. But sometimes, it's just laying it all out there to really think about all those pieces. And for myself as a board, like I'm gonna circle back with those teachers and say, I was in there, like I didn't really introduce myself to those teachers and I could have done better, were they happy I was there? Were they not? Were they like, who's this lady? I don't know.
Yes. So I'm trying to figure out where to start with that. Let's start with my goal. The visibility, making sure that I'm out interacting, engaging with folks is important. And so I've made a goal around that. So we can talk about how you want to measure that, but I'll also tell you that as soon as I walk into a room, I'm a physics teacher. So the Heisenberg uncertainty principle says that I'm going to change the environment. And so as I go in there, I'm not in there to judge the teacher. I'm actually watching the principal to see how they are interacting in the classroom. And mostly, I'm out watching instruction and traveling. And if I wanted to improve the instruction, I wouldn't go in the room because again, I change it maybe for the better, but even more importantly, most of the time the kids are then waving at me and I'm pulling them away from the instruction. But it's so important for me to get out and make sure that I'm seeing classrooms and people see me. So what I would say before we move to the other pieces there would be, let's talk about 15% of my time out in the classrooms is something that I've looked at, I've analyzed, and I've said, I believe I can hit that mark. That there is, I get lots of phone calls. We have it 7:30 daily power going out, and then we're trying to reroute buses and all the rest. So, but I think this is doable. The other pieces, participate in school and community events, making sure that I'm there at the different pieces. If there's something else you want to increase my visibility, let's send it to me. I'm happy to talk about that. The purpose of that visibility, though, at least for me, the board, I think that's another conversation about how do you want to be. But I'll also be careful because of, again, as we work with our different unions and the folks in our organization, me talking to a single teacher out in the classroom, that's different than me actually querying all teachers and finding out what they think. And so again, I'm listening, I'm hearing, but I also, there's lots of different viewpoints individually out there. And so I have to pay attention to all of that. So I think we should try and hone in on, do you want changes to the measurables of this goal? The evaluation system of the board, it's funny because I talked to a couple of different city entities and nobody's ever really done that. Nobody's seen it. I do think there may be a model, but we didn't find many out there, but we'll keep searching. I just wanted you to know that we did hear that at the last meeting, that we were out looking about how that might work. So, and there was something else in there, but I didn't get it.
What, like, even as important, like, I'm not sure, I mean, Sarah, I would be interested if she can say, like, what is it that, like, the 15, I don't really care so much about the 15% or 20%, but what is it? And what's good there is, like, this is what Dave can get out of it, what we might get out of it as a board, but like, what is the reason that that's come up? What is the underlying, there's a reason that people want more visibility, right? I don't know. I would love to know what it is. Right, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is like,
Then I think we should query it.
Yes.
Because if that's what you want, then you should ask all teachers what they think.
Well, we just think that when this comes across, like that they don't think you're visible enough, and I might not have agreed with that, but obviously some people are saying that. So to me, when I see it, I'm like, why? Like, obviously there's an issue, and I just wish that they come out and say that instead of being like, you should be here more because you're a busy guy and you got lots of things to do.
So what I would say is, again, we're putting together the climate and culture survey. This would be something that we could add and delve into, which is there's some questions around the board and the rest. That would make sense. I think that's a good idea. Right.
I'm fine with your goal though, and how it looks.
Gotcha.
Are you guys fine with how his goal looks about that? I think it was just more about why.
Okay, and so the next time this will come back as an action item, if there are any questions or changes that I can get a hold of me and I will,
Beforehand, before Monday.
Right.
By the Friday before.
that'd be great.
You see how balanced my whole level of words, and just basically can put it down in one.
I'll try to work on this so this meeting's run a little bit. Just kidding, Christy. Okay, Dave, are you good?
Yep.
Okay, and is everybody else gonna be ready to move on? So if we have any concerns about his goals, if you have any questions, please email him by the Friday before the meeting so he can be prepared to address it, or we can talk about it before that. So it will be an action item at the next meeting. At this time, I'm gonna invite Oswaldo Garcia Contreras up here to talk to us about the English language development instructional materials waiver.
Yeah.
Huh?
Hello,
Thanks for joining us.
absolutely. Happy to see you all here. Yeah, well, the reality is I don't really have a presentation. I have an idea that I share with you, in the summary. I'm ready to answer all the questions about that. But I just wanted to also, share with you, the story behind it. Right now we are in the middle of, preparing for a monitoring visit. Title 3 monitoring visit. And there is item 22 in there that we need to complete. And that item requires us to, as part of the division 22 as well, requires us to have a curriculum. Requires us to approve instructional materials that can be used in the classroom for the instruction of for English language learners. That adoption was supposed to take place in the year 21-22. And at that moment was also the beginning of, the adoption process for the leadership curriculum. And we also knew that we were having the math curriculum adoption coming down, right after. So it wasn't really responsible for the ELD department to try to go through an adoption process. Number one, when we as a district were committing not only the alignment, but the human capital to really understand and embrace the literacy adoption. And also number two, we as a district have been trying to develop and change the way we teach English language. We are adopting a number of instructional models that are more integrated. So trying to go out there and purchase a curriculum that was not going to be aligned to our literacy or our new math or our new science, which many of the instructional models that we have chosen are connected to those subjects because it's integrated in the content. That was going to be also responsible. So right now, the main reason why I'm here today is to be compliant and make sure that I request from the board a postponement of this adoption. We don't believe that we need to do a full adoption. We believe it needs to be an independent adoption that allows us to create our own materials and just get, human capital together, think through what we really need to do, develop the resources connected to the subjects that we are integrating ELD right now through, and then move forward with that idea. So that's kind of like the proposal, and that's what I submitted to you, right? So I'm ready for your questions.
So when would we be putting it up and doing it?
So we have been.
What would the timeline look like?
Yeah, for the last 2 years, we have been kind of looking at Amplify. We looked at Language Studio, which is a program that came with Amplify to see if we could play with that and develop a curriculum from there. The experts that we had working on that did not recommend that. So we will continue working on this. We are thinking that, as it comes around in the new year, January, at the end of January, February, we should have something put in place. And at that moment, we will propose that as the curriculum adoption. Right now, all we need to do is secure this delay, postpone that, so that I make sure that we have the time to get us all together and put something that is high quality for our staff and our students.
Looks like the adoption postponement of the independent adoption process until January 2024. Is that when you would, so in January, you would have a recommendation for the board at that point, or would it be?
That's my hope, yeah. I mean, we have to do it because, we need to also obey by the timelines of the state, how provided us.
Right.
So I gotta move quickly.
And so the waiver is really around, we're doing the title audit right now. As part of that audit, they're saying you need to have a waiver in place, even though January is when we're gonna, look to kind of move on that.
Yeah, they said, as I submit item 22, which is one of the requirements for the audit, that means I need to have a curriculum in place right now, approved by the board, or have the waiver that allows me to respond. Yeah.
Who's gonna work on developing the materials in the program?
My entire team, and that means, my, dual language, TOSA, my EL, those at the district level, some teacher leaders that we have been having conversations about that before. That includes EL facilitators at every building. So yeah, that's not a decision that one person can make.
Our current adoption is like that, correct?
Yes, and that's what makes it, somewhat we have a direction because in the year 2017, as I understand, was the last time we adopted a curriculum and was also an independent option. So we are thinking that we're gonna do something similar to what happened before.
I'm curious, I'm looking through this, I read it, and I'm reading it again, so I guess, just help me understand, so you listed the material, Oxford Dictionary, dictionary, all of this stuff, curriculum stuff, so this is what we've done in the past?
That's correct. That belongs to the previous adoption. And I just wanted to kind of make sure that you had a point of reference of what it looked like when it happened.
So you haven't given us, you're gonna wait with your committee to drive.
Exactly. Yeah.
And some of this stuff is not very important.
And then Kate, I think you also had kind of a question around like, the presentation. So we can actually put some of that information together and bring that back so that you can kind of see where we're at.
Yeah, I would be really curious to see, and I know we have COVID, I understand those numbers are going to be different, but I'd like to see the data of, how many students, what was the outcome in 2017 until June of 2023.
Absolutely, we can put that together for you. Yeah, I'll be excited to come back and.
Well, it'd be nice to see where we've been and what has worked, what has not worked. Also, what are other districts doing that are being really successful? I'm sure you're doing that. And so, but I was looking at all of this and I'm trying to figure out. Anyway, you would explain.
Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of wanted, like I said, wanted to give you the frame of reference of what was the process that we as a district went through in 2017. Because we're gonna go through a similar process. That doesn't mean that we're going to adopt the same material.
So the people that are listed here were the people from 2017, correct? That are on this. I see Dilly and I see Tony Clark and all that.
Yeah.
Those are the people that were facilitators, et cetera.
Yeah.
And this is a future.
Yes, we'll be coming up in the next meeting. So if you have more questions or things before that, you can email Oz
Absolutely, no copy.
or Dave.
Well, this isn't coming up in the next meeting.
It's to do the waiver. The waiver needs to come, he needs a waiver like yesterday. Yeah, any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, there's an opportunity for any other future board items or board discussion the board might want to discuss. Does anybody have anything? This moment now? Good.